One of our first lessons will cover operations with fractions. And a big part of that is simplifying the fraction, putting the fraction in simplest form. And one of the things I find is that sometimes students aren't really sure how to simplify the fraction, what numbers, what factors to choose when simplifying. And something that can help with that is knowing just a couple of the divisibility rules. And we're not going to go over all of them, just some of the ones that are pretty quick to pick up. Some of them get a little complicated when you're trying to see if a number is divisible. So you can always look on Google. I'm sure there are tons of YouTube videos out there that cover that go a little bit more in depth, cover some more of the rules, but we're just going to look at a few. The first one that I talk about a lot in my classes is that if a number is even, it's divisible by 2. And this helps a lot, again, when we're simplifying these fractions. But so, for example, we have the number 12. If we have the number 12, 12 is an even number. We know that 12 divided by 2 is 6. So if the number is even, it's automatically divisible by 2. Now, that doesn't mean that it's the only number it's divisible by. There are other numbers that divide evenly into 12, but we know for sure that 2 is one of those numbers. And this helps when you have fractions. For example, if we have the fraction 4/6, I know the top number is even as well as the bottom number. I know I could simplify the top and bottom of this fraction by 2. And that we go into that in a future video. We'll cover exactly how to simplify that fraction. But this can help you if you know what divides evenly into 4, what divides evenly into 6. That will help you be able to reduce that fraction a little faster. So if the number's even, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, as far as you want to go, those are our even numbers, and those are all divisible by 2. Now, 3, if a number is divisible by 3, for example, let's take the number 18. A number is divisible by 3 if the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. Meaning, if I have the number 18, if I add those two numbers together, 1 plus 8 equals 9. 9 is divisible by 3, then I know that 18 is also divisible by 3. And this is helpful if you have larger numbers. For example, maybe 54. I would say 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3, so I know 54 is also divisible by 3. If I were to take 54, divide it by 3 into my calculator, I would get a whole number answer back. Something that I tell students to do, in my class we can just use a basic calculator, and so if you think it's divisible by the number, you can always use your calculator to check, and it comes out evenly, so then I know it's divisible by 3. So if you have a larger number and you're wanting to know if it's divisible by 3, you add the digits together, and if that number is divisible by 3, then we know the larger number is as well. We could do the same thing with the 24, right? I could say 2 plus 4 is 6. I know 3 divides evenly into 6, so I know that 24 is also divisible by 3. So 2 and 3 are fairly easy to use. There's also 5. We want to know if a number is divisible by 5. If the number ends in 0 or 5, we know we can divide it by 5. So for example, 35, right? The number ends in 5, so I know it should divide evenly by 5. And we can check that. I can check that in my calculator, and it does come out 35 divided by 5 would be 7. So 5 would be one of the factors or divisible by 5. And again, we use this when we have fractions because we're looking at a common factor between the numerator and the denominator. So maybe I have a fraction that looks like this. And I know, well, both of these end in 5, so I can divide the top and bottom by 5 and reduce my fraction. That's how we would use these rules to help us simplify our fractions. If a number ends in 0, it's also divisible by 5. So 50 would be divisible by 5, or we could say 5 is a factor of 50. I could divide this by 5, and it comes out evenly. So if it ends in a 0 or a 5, I know that I can divide that number by 5. 0 or 5, I can divide the number by 5. 10 is also a number that we could look at. If a number ends in 0, I know it can divide evenly by 10. So for example, 60. The number ends in 0. I could also divide it by 5, right? It divides evenly. 5 divides evenly into 60. Also 10 divides evenly into 60. So if the number ends in a 0, I can divide that number by 10. 60 divided by 10 would give me 6. Right? I could say 40. Any of these numbers that end in 0, I know I can divide them by 10. That doesn't mean that's the only number, right? But it means it's one of the choices. It's one of the factors of that number. So those are just a few quick ones that can help you when we get into simplifying fractions if you know those rules. So if it's divisible by 2 if the number is even. Right? It's divisible by 3 if I add up the digits and that number is divisible by 3, like 54. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9's divisible by 3, so I know 54 is also divisible by 3. It's divisible by 5 if the number ends in a 0 or a 5. The last digit is a 0 or a 5. I can divide that number by 5. I can divide the number by 10 if it ends in a 0. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, right? 1,000, those all end in 0. So I know I can divide that by 10. And again, there are several other ones you can probably find, but these are just kind of some easy ones that can help us when we get into simplifying our fractions. It cut down on time a little bit because we can automatically rule out, well, these are odd numbers, I can't divide it by 2, and they don't end in 5. I'm not even going to try 5 when I'm dividing these, and it gives us a starting point when we start to simplify our fractions.